When you hear the name Charlie Chaplin, what comes to your mind? What was the first film that you watched of him? Personally, I always found interesting his name and the perception that people had about him. My dad used to have a photo of him and the kid among his things, so I wonder, who was he? And what about this film entitled The Kid? What is so interesting about it? Samantha, please, would you be so kind to tell those who are watching what's the premise of The Kid?
Sure thing, Jack. The Kid is a film from 1921, written, produced, and directed by Charlie Chaplin. The story is about a mother who does not have the resources to raise a child and decides to leave at the care of someone else. And, for the surprise of the one known as the tramp, he finds the kid and decides to raise him, despite the financial adversities.
Thank you, dear. Now, perhaps I could break the experience with this film in two parts. The first one would be when I got to watch it for the very first time, a couple years ago, when I was still a teenager that just decided to explore more deeply the world of cinema. And that exploration included older movies, such as the ones with Chaplin. What I can recall is that even though it was something new for me, getting to watch a silent film, the feeling was there. The story was moving, surprising me because I was expecting more of a comedy and less of a drama. But the dramatic aspect of the story was what really left a positive mark on me, even making me wanting to cry. Now, the second time would be the last one, which is being used as a reference to make this video. And the very feelings that I had the first time I watched the film were present in this time, but perhaps with more intensity. I laughed, I almost cried again, and the exercise of empathy was in motion. The mother. What could be interesting about the mother is the fact that she's not evil. Even the father, who's the man that we see in the beginning of the film, doesn't seem to be evil too. I believe we could infer that there was some sort of misunderstanding between them both about the relationship, or even that they were not expecting to be parents soon, or at the least one of them was not expecting it at all. But it does not seem to have some bad blood between them both. There seem to be doubts, uncertainty, and even longing for each other, which can make us, as viewers, infer more complexity and substance about these characters, instead of us just having to see evil parents with evil smiles abandoning their child. The face of the mother shows this parent trying to figure out what to do with such innocent and beautiful creature. What's the role to be performed here? Can she make it? Which makes me wonder how many times this kind of situation has happened. Perhaps you were someone whose parents had doubts about raising a kid because of financial issues and other important aspects. Maybe your parents had a little faith in themselves. Maybe they decided to put this faith in someone else. This is the kind of background which is hard to judge. When the mother actually decides to go back on her decision, the kid is long gone, already with Chaplin. When we get to see her again, we see her being successful professionally, living better, having a house, people who praise her work, but also having the sadness of not having what could be the most important thing for a mother, her child. Perhaps the fact that she acts kindly upon the people with less luck in life, it is not only because she believes in the love Jesus teaches, or because once she was as poor as the children she decided to help, but also because her decision of leaving her child to someone else somewhat torments her, even if it was made with good intention. In order to also reduce the feeling of guilt, she goes on the streets and gives toys to children that perhaps would never get the chance to play with a toy if it was not for her. After the story proceeds, we get to see something beautiful from her. Gratitude. Understanding that the child who was being taken care of by Chaplin was her actual son made her want to demonstrate her gratitude to the tramp. And I believe this is interesting because the story could have gone to another direction, a more selfish one, where the mother would retrieve her control over the child and completely forget about Chaplin, or even make his way impossible to see the kid again. Thankfully and beautifully, the story ends with gratitude. The Tramp. I believe that Chaplin can be an interesting indirect answer to her doubts of being a mother in the beginning of the film. Think with me. The mother was uncertain if she would be able to raise the child, leading her to drop the responsibility to someone else. Later, Chaplin decides to take that responsibility himself, but I don't think that he would be the best candidate to become a father. Clearly, he's poor, really, really poor. He doesn't seem to be the most responsible one and tries to do the same as the mother did before, drop the child to someone else or someplace else. Even though his way of caring for the child is not the most honorable one, still, after discovering that John was orphaned, he took the responsibility and decided to face the odds, which, probably, I'm going to guess that it is what happened with most parents in this world, where there was no plans to have a child, but still, after having the news, decided to take the responsibility. It is like one of those tasks which, if we wait to finally be prepared, that task, that responsibility will never be faced, because the preparation occurs along with facing the obstacle. And quite frankly, I believe that the mother would still be a great mother, even facing uncertainty. I say this because the only reason she didn't retrieve her son back earlier, it was because some bandits decided to rob the very same car that the child was at. Tell me about unlucky timing. But think if there was no robbers, perhaps the child would still be there to be taken by his mother, or even being found by the owners of the car and later on being searched by the mother herself. Now, what could we think about all this? I remember once my mother and I traveling to the place where she was raised to see her family. For me, it was my first time, a time which I will never forget. And one of the reasons is because I was present at a really sad moment between my mom and my so-called grandma. The scenario was a probable argument between my mom and hers. I can't say for sure because I don't remember everything, but what I remember clearly was my grandma saying to my mother that my mom wasn't her daughter, that she didn't have a daughter. My mom was the single girl among a lot of boys, and she comes from a family and period where having a boy was a joy and having a girl not so much, and my mom got a lot of despise from her, to the point where, according to her, she had to leave home because otherwise she would starve to death. The point I would like to show is that not everybody is lucky as the kid John is in the movie. Even if we consider her flawed decision, the mother still loved the kid and wanted to take care of him. And also, the kid got very lucky of being found by Chaplin instead of someone else, someone who could have been cruel and harsh to the kid. My mom, unfortunately, didn't find this with her mother. And there's so many other people out in the world that didn't have the privilege of being raised with love by their parents. Some people in the beginning of their lives just discovered pain and desperation from the world. Some of them got so hurt from these times that they closed themselves or became the cruel ones. Some others, even though dealing with a hard world, didn't let that darkness corrupt important elements such as empathy or compassion. As a matter of fact, some of the people who had nothing in life, like the love and affection of a mom or dad, are more grateful for life than the ones who has more than what they actually need. I think one of the points we could have with these three characters is to be grateful of what we had of good and what we still have, and forgive whatever pain was caused to us. Otherwise, we would become like them, if not in action, in spirit. And like Socrates says, people who commit mistakes and bad deeds do it because of their ignorance of what is really good. Another thing, so I searched a little bit about the movie and saw some comments about how the movie can be also a critique about the belief that you're only prepared to raise a child if you have a good amount of resources, in which it is the kind of belief that has its credit, of course. But adding to these comments, this is important, but not only the only important aspect to be considered when raising a child. We as humans do need our physical and external basic needs fulfilled, but also, as we have a much more developed consciousness, we're also molded by values and beliefs. Values and beliefs that mold our behavior and which comes by learning with someone else, directly or not. A child can be served with the most expensive food, the most delicious ones, but if the parent doesn't teach the child to be grateful or having food on their table, to only take what they need, to understand that not everybody has the privilege to have food on their table, that child might grow thinking it is nice to waste food, for example. I believe that the film can also be an illustration that yes, structure does make the difference at one's raising, but so does physical and emotional presence. As a matter of fact, the latter being the most important. Great, you gave a PlayStation 5 to your son, but are you spending time with him? Are you trying to get to know him? What values are you teaching him? How much do you know him? Are you sure you know him? Are you present in his life? These questions, along with the reflections, seems obvious, but just because it seems obvious does not mean that they are not important. Perhaps we should go back and pay attention to these obvious elements.